Pierre Poilievre blesses us with a gift for the Christmas season as he shows us a new mini-doc showing how Justin Trudeau's leadership has affected the housing market and how it's about to burst. There's just one thing that none of these leaders are talking about that's missing in this video. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I hope you stayed nice and warm if it was cold where you're at, or if you're out west where I am, had a nice, enjoyable, above average weekend as the temperatures were great for getting outside and walking around with your family and maybe enjoying some of that good old climate change as we move into the next work week. Pierre Poilievre releasing a documentary, a mini doc, this last week, and he calls it Housing Hell. And if you haven't heard about it yet, it's a very informative documentary. I would highly recommend going to check it out. I would really recommend watching it, especially because what Pierre does is he lays out a lot of what might be blown over or misunderstood in terms of the definitions and words that are used whenever government's talking about the housing bubble and where housing's going. It's basically broken down into layman's terms so that even the youngest of people that have a hard time understanding what exactly is happening in Canada right now can make a better understanding of it. There's just one problem, and we're going to get into that as this video goes on. I first wanted to address this article that came out from the National Post, citing Pierre's video. It says here, the video is a slick, graphics-heavy adaptation of the stump speeches that Poilievre has been delivering as he tours the country. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre released a 15-minute video Saturday morning that more closely resembles a PBS Frontline documentary than a short, slogan-heavy ads Canadians are used to. Something new and strange is happening in Canada. Poilievre's narration begins. News clips roll about a housing bubble in Canada while images on a tent city flash across the screen. Something we haven't seen before. An entire generation of youth now say they will never be able to buy a home. This is not normal for Canada, the voiceover continues. The video, released in both French and English, is a slick, graphics-heavy adaptation of the stump speeches that Poilievre has been delivering as he tours the country. Pierre Poilievre announced on Friday via X, formerly Twitter, he'd be releasing a groundbreaking documentary on Canada's housing hell. It speaks out using dozens of graphics and charts, a step-by-step case for why the Conservatives believe government spending and borrowing under the Trudeau Liberals has fueled inflation along with the unprecedented rise in housing costs, pricing hundreds of thousands of families and millions of younger Canadians out of the housing market. Now, it's interesting that they talk about that because, again, one problem that Pierre Poilievre doesn't address in this video is something that I'm not seeing any politician mentioning right now. We've talked about it before on the channel, but it's interesting what he does have to say, and it's very, again, it's very informative. I can't really put it into words just how good this is for you to go and watch and get educated. There will be a link down below in the description if you want to go check it out if you haven't yet. But Poilievre staffers say that next to the carbon tax, housing is the issue that comes up most when people talk to Poilievre at his rallies. So that is substantiated by nationwide polling. A survey conducted by Ipsos last month found that 73% of Canadians think owning a home in Canada is now only for the rich. 66% of Canadians who don't own a house said they've given up on ever being able to afford a home. Perhaps unsurprisingly, these trends have coincided with polls showing the Conservatives thoroughly dominating in support amongst young voters, with the governing Liberals a distant third behind the NDP. Now, that, of course, is the most shocking of anything, that the NDP is actually gaining ground over the Liberals. Now, for myself, that doesn't really surprise me, given Justin Trudeau's track record, how, again, I think the nail in the coffin for him, and I've been saying all along, the unwinding for him that's going to start beginning his downfall was giving Eastern Canada, essentially, a carve-out in terms of the carbon tax, while the rest of Canada is told to shut up and pay. It's scams at its finest. The carbon tax we've known for a long time is a scam, but it's now getting to the point where Canadians feel they're never going to get ahead. They're never going to move forward. I know even in our home, where we make a reasonable mid to mid-upper class wage, I guess you could say, with the combined incomes, we're still living check to check when you're done paying your bills. So that's the biggest problem people are reaching in Canada. And Pierre Poilievre talks about that in his latest video, about how people's mortgages were about half as much as they were 8 years ago, and it's now getting to the point where people are paying on average $3,200 a month for a mortgage. I don't know who in the right mind can afford that, especially when 35% of your check currently goes to income tax and other taxes that the government pockets your money on. More recently, Canadians have started telling pollsters they think the country's high levels of immigration are worsening the housing crisis. And that's part of what I wanted to get into here. And then we're going to get back to the article. This is where I feel something is missing. And this is where, again, I think one of these leaders, if they want to get ahead in the polls, are going to have to address this problem. Now, let's see this short clip of the documentary. Again, I'll have a link below in the description, and then we'll discuss.
Canadian prices, which are so much higher than in other countries, are determined by supply and demand. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. We have fewer houses per capita today than we did 8 years ago, as population has outgrown home building. Canada built fewer homes last year than it built in 1972, 50 years ago. Consider this. In 1972, Canada's population was 22 million, and we built about 230,000 homes. In 2022, Canada's population was 39 million, and we built about 220,000 homes. In other words, far more people, far less home building.
So right there is where the problem is with this mini doc. And again, something that I think the Conservatives are afraid to talk about. When you look at Roxham Road, when you look at illegal immigrants coming over, Canada has a massive immigration problem. I am definitely one who has always said that, give us your hungry, your poor, give people the opportunity to work and contribute to our GDP. Give them the opportunity to make their family have roots in this country where anybody who's willing to get their hands dirty can be successful. The problem is that Justin Trudeau has opened the doors in terms of immigration and just said, come on in. And of course he does that because it's been garnering him his votes. It's the only reason he's been in power for the last 8 years. And when it comes to immigration, as it states in this article, Poilievre does not directly mention immigration in the video, although he warns about a lack of home supply being increasingly outstripped by large population growth. So the biggest problem there, and what I would like to see from one of these leaders, and again, I'm not blaming Pierre Poilievre. I understand that when you run in politics, there's a time and a place to say what you want to say. I know they basically run based on what polling says to them. They're worried about losing seats, but honestly, the Conservatives have gained so much steam at this point. I think it would do them justice to come forward and mention the big elephant in the room that, look, we can still take immigrants, but those doors should close, and it should be a vast, smaller amount of immigrants coming in to the country until we can get homes built, until we can get our debt under control, until we can get the government under control and its spending under control. We need to fix Canada first. I've been talking about this the entire time. This conflict has been going on with Israel-Palestine, saying we shouldn't be funding another war. We shouldn't be funding the Ukraine. And of course, the Conservatives have stood against that funding in the previous weeks, being called racist misogynists that don't want to support other countries. Well, we need to take care of Canada first. And that is the problem right now, is that none of these leaders, while they're hinting at it, and I kind of get, I don't know about you guys, I kind of get a little bit of sick and tired of guys like Pierre Poilievre tiptoeing around the issue rather than coming out and saying what every Canadian is thinking. Again, this isn't to be racist, and it's not to say, hey, Canadians, don't want immigrants or anything like that. I'm happy to take immigrants, but it has to be under the right circumstances. I've often compared it to the age-old airplane going down with the oxygen masks falling from the ceiling and being told, in order to help your child, you must secure your oxygen mask first so that you're fully capable of helping your child. It's the same thing when you're running a country. It's nice to be the good guy and open the door for people and say, come on in. One thing that Pierre Poilievre touches on in his video is that Canada has a lot of unused land that's covered up in red tape. Now, it'd be great to invite people into the country, and it'd be great to say, come live here. But the problem is we need places for them to live instead of telling them to go sleep under a bridge or in a tent, or tell our own people that, hey, you've been priced out of the market because people are coming over where their money is worth much more than it is here, and they're buying up homes that people can no longer afford to live in. And with bidding wars, it's causing even bigger problems for people to get in and get approved. We now see it where people, again, are paying over $3,000 a month for the average mortgage, not to mention their car payments, insurance, cell phones, food. utilities. Like, it goes on and on. This is a big, big problem in this country. I'd like to see one of these leaders touch base on it. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think that this is the piece of the puzzle that's missing from this equation? I strongly recommend, again, you go and watch this video from Pierre Poilievre. It's fantastic. It's very informative. And again, if you're not one for very big terms, he breaks it down in a way that everyone can understand how this is affecting everyone, what the solution is, and how things are going to get better. Again, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to click that subscribe button and also click your bell for notifications as we're fighting shadow bans here on the platform. It's always good to be notified when our videos go live. I do update content regularly on weekly, Monday through Friday. There's usually at least one video a day minimum. So make sure to check back often for our new content here on the channel. Join us live every Sunday here on the channel for our weekly wrap where I talk about everything that's happened in the week prior, everything coming up in the week ahead. And it's always good to chat with folks outside of doing these videos and get to know you guys on a personal level. And I hope to see you all there. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.